All right. Well, thank you guys so much. It's been honestly just an honor hanging out, and I feel like family now with you guys. And we're just blown away by hearing your guys' testimony and where God is taking you and what He's taking you out of, and just the transparency. I think it's kind of scary to be completely real and vulnerable, and you guys have heard from the Lord that in order to see other people come out of the life, you have to take that bold step and be vulnerable, and you're willing to do that. So I just want to thank you so much from the bottom of our heart. Thank you guys for coming and doing this.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Jill, I'm going to ask you the first question, okay? Could you briefly tell me about your childhood and your background?
So I was born and raised in upstate New York, like in the country area. I was about 3 years old when my mother and father got divorced. My father was an alcoholic, drug addict. So I pretty much grew up without my dad, even though he was there, he wasn't there. And my mom struggled. She always had 2 or 3 jobs to raise me and my 2 sisters. So going forward a little bit, going through high school, I was, as I said, I was raised in the country, but I always wanted to be in like the city of Syracuse is the closest city. So that's where I was always trying to go. I was always getting mixed in with the wrong people, and started drinking, started smoking weed. And then in my junior year of high school, I ended up dropping out, and that's when I had my first son. From there, I had my best friend. We've been best friends for like 30 years now. We knew each other since I was about 6. So my son was about 2 years old, and my best friend met this guy that gave us an opportunity to go to Vegas. Did you want more of that?
No, that's a great,
okay.
Because the next question I was going to ask you is that I don't believe a young boy or a young girl would ever really aspire to become a pimp or a prostitute. So how is it that you ended up getting into the life?
So when we were presented with this opportunity for Vegas, I had never been even to New York City at this point. I was just a little country girl that liked to be in the city, in a small city. Excuse me. So it was explained to me what we were going to be doing, but I didn't, I got it, but I didn't get it. So he sugarcoated it. This man sugarcoated it so well that it was like, well, there's lots of money to be made. You can ask for as much money as you want. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do. And then I was like, okay, so you're just in it for the ride? You're just going to let us go out and get some money for a couple months and bring us home? It didn't make sense to me, but it was still, enticing. I was like, well, I want to go get this money, I have a child now. And then I remember talking to my best friend about it. We were discussing it, and we both told each other, we're either going to go together or we're not going. And then I kind of laughed about it, and I said, so he's our pimp, and we're a prostitute? And I laughed because I didn't realize that's actually what we were getting ourselves into. So the next thing I knew, we decided to go. I left my son with my mother. Excuse me. Of course, this happens every time.
That's why we got some water for you, and a handsome husband to give you some water. So he looks good with long hair, right?
Sorry. So we started driving, and of course, he had the flashy car. He had an Escalade. He had nice clothes, nice jewelry. Always had money. Always had weed. That was our thing. We always were smoking weed, drinking. So everything looked awesome to us. We're like, okay, let's do this. We'll go get some money for a couple months. We'll just come back home. So we started driving to Vegas, and we barely got to New York City. Okay, so we're still in the same state. We haven't even crossed the state line yet. And my friend, she had a little bit of a mouth and attitude on her, so she something happened, I don't remember what, and she kind of got an attitude and said something to him, and I'll never forget, he said, "I'm a pimp, not a simp." And I was like, what? Like, I didn't, like, I understood it, but I was like, wow. So, the further we got, and then he ended up putting her out of the car because of her attitude. And he said, well, I'll just leave you guys, or I'll leave you right here. And I said, well, I'm not going with you, and I'll get out with her. So we were on the street in the middle of New York City at nighttime, no phone, no money, no nothing. And we were just like, okay, what are we gonna do? And then he ended up coming back around like 10, 15 minutes later, and he picked us up, and we continued on our route to Vegas. And basically the further we got from home, the more aggressive and the more his attitude and his real personality came out. Excuse me. So then here comes Vegas. We get into Vegas. It's lights, camera, action. Like it's just glamorous. It's Vegas. We've never been there, so we were just all the lights. And the first thing he did was pick up his girl. It was his bottom girl. And we went to her apartment. So it was me, my best friend, and her. It was 3 girls he had. And then the next day, his girl at the time took us out to the casinos and kind of showed us the ropes. And, and again, I knew what was going on, but it was just like, okay, do it. Like, I want to get this money, but do I really want to do this? And until I actually got my first taste of money, and I'm very transparent, so I'm just going to be blunt about it. So I got $700, and I basically did almost nothing. Kind of just got drunk with a John, and I was like, okay, I can do this. Like that taste of money was like, okay, I can do this. This much money for almost nothing, like, okay. And then the pimp that I was with, he came and picked me up like immediately, took the money, every bit of it, and I was just like, whoa, okay. Like, I'm starting to get it more and more, like what's really going on. So then I was kind of, I was with it, but I wasn't. Like, I want to do it, I want the money, but I don't know. My best friend, she caught on pretty quick. She just kind of, did her thing. She already had a relationship with him, though, and I didn't. And do you want me to keep elaborating?
No, I think that's good. So you kind of, from our conversation, so then when you're in Vegas, for about the next month and a half, you actually connect with multiple different pimps, and they kind of have you doing some things. And, right?
Yeah. So after 2 weeks of being with him, I was out one night, and actually into the morning. It was like 9 o'clock in the morning, and he basically told me, you're going to stay out until you get some money. And I was just like, okay, I'm not used to wearing heels. I'm in these heels. I'm tired. Like, I'm not getting any money. Like, so he told me to either walk home or you stay out till you get some money. So it was a long walk to the hotel we were at. I finally get there, ended up meeting another pimp, ended up leaving with him, went through just basically for survival. At this point, I'm out here in Vegas, and I was really stubborn and really hard-headed. So I was like, I came out here to do something, and I'm gonna do it. I'm out here to get money. This is what I need to do. But at the same time, I didn't have my best friend. She's still with him, and now he's against me because I've left him. So I can't talk to her. I have nobody. I have nothing. So it was just like survival mode. So, one of the pimps that I went with, he said, he wanted to have sex, and I kind of didn't. I don't know. I just met you like yesterday. And he said, well, you don't have any money. You haven't been getting any money, so you got to give me something. And I was like, okay. So I did it. I didn't know if I don't do it, what happens. And, as I went through, within about a month and a half, I probably went 5 pimps, just switching different situations.
How did you end up meeting Mark?
So, about the 5th or 6th pimp in, and I'm not proud of that, by the way. It's just, it just happened. Again, it was just a survival mode for me. So the fifth pimp or sixth pimp, I actually had a hotel room. He actually got me a hotel room. So, I started making some money here and there. I was starting to get a little bit more money to where he was able to put me in a room. And that's the same room that Mark was staying at. So I was walking home from a casino one time, and he pulled up. And so every pimp, like I said before, a big thing for me was smoking weed and drinking. So every pimp I left with, they always got me with, do you want to come smoke with me? And yeah. So Mark said it to me, and he said, well, come smoke with me. And I was like, nope, I'm not doing it this time. And then he gave me his room number. For some reason, I actually was content at this time. I had my room, I was okay. For some reason, I called. I don't know why. He wasn't there. So I ended up seeing him a few days later at a casino bar. And he actually sent a John over to me. And I pickpocketed him at the bar. So, I was already I already was attracted to him. I was kind of feeling his vibe just from the little bit of interaction that we did have. And then he basically just gave me money, He just sent this guy to me that I got some money from. So I was like, okay, this dude is kind of cool. So he ends up getting kicked out of the casino and walks by me. And I think I was the one who was like, where are you guys going? And he's like, come on. And I was like, okay. Here we go again. And basically, I've been with him ever since that day. Of course, there's a lot in between. One instant, that day that we left, we're driving down the street, and his friend is driving, his friend's girl is driving, his friend is in the front, and the girl he had at the time, and him are in the back. So he's drinking a water bottle, throws it out the window, police are behind us. So they pull us over. Well, little did I know, of course he had weed on him, I knew that. I took the weed for him, before the police came up to the car, and then they had a pistol. So everybody's playing hot potato, and I'm like, look, just give me the gun. I've never even touched a gun ever in my life. I don't know what made me do this. So I took the gun for him. And I think for him, the lifestyle that he lived at the time and the way that he was like, okay, she's a keeper. My own girl didn't just take the gun and the weed, but this girl that I don't even know just did. So it just kind of started from there.
That's awesome. You're doing great. Thank you for sharing this stuff. The next question would be, were you or the women that you were with ever assaulted by the Johns or pimps? Because you're in this lifestyle now, you've met Mark, and you're kind of conflicted a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. And there's some women that might be watching this on YouTube, because we're getting it recorded, that are in that situation right now, and they're maybe considering doing this for some money. But the reality that you were talking to us yesterday, could you share with us more of the reality of what it really is like with maybe John, some things that really happen, or what it's really like living in that situation with a pimp?
Well, in the beginning, it was what it seemed to be glamorous, and it was money. I can get in it. I can get all this money, and I can treat these men how I want to treat them. And it wasn't really all what it seemed to be, though. After a while, Mark was abusive, physically, mentally, emotionally. There's been quite a few situations that I've gotten into with Johns. Now I know. At the time, I would be like, I don't know how I got out of that. I mean, I'm naked on the ground trying to get away. I'm crawling on a hotel room floor trying to get away from this man because he's trying to take my money, and I'm not doing what he wants me to do. So he's trying to take my money, and I'm like, heck no, and I'm trying to get out of there. He comes from behind me, basically in a chokehold. Somehow I get out of it, and I run out of the room with a towel in my purse and my knife. And now I know that was only God that got me out of that situation. There's been plenty of other situations that I could have lost my life. I had a friend within the first year of being in the lifestyle. I had a really close friend that her boyfriend murdered her. She was She was found tied up and beaten and strangled to death. And then...
Do we have any napkins or anything?
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
It happens every time.
It's okay. That was my bad. I should have grabbed something. Marlon, can I steal that from you? Thanks, man. Here you go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So that was just one incident. There's another girl that I knew. She was actually from really close to my hometown. And she was actually connected to a serial killer, and only her legs were found. It's been other girls that, it was a UFC fighter that I think choked another girl out and left her in the hall, right in the hallway of a casino hotel. Like, you know, they just, they don't care about prostitutes, you know. It's just like, it's so dangerous. Like, anything could happen to anybody at any time. And then there's, you know, every situation is different. Mark wasn't, as what we would say, a guerrilla pimp that is, you know, really aggressive. Although, you know, you think, okay, well, he whooped on you, but he wasn't aggressive. You know, there's some that are even worse. Like, if you don't come home with money, I'm whooping your butt. So Mark was, you know, we got into it a few times, quite a few times, I should say. You know, I've had a broken collarbone. I came home one day and I was looking for some weed and he didn't have any. I got upset. I threw an ashtray down and he dragged me by my hair downstairs, took me in the room, and just whooped on me. Like, my best friend came and picked me up and she was like, "You look like Elephant Man." Like, I just had bruises and swollen everywhere, and, you know, I had nerve damage. It's been some situations, you know. It's not what it seems to be. Yeah, the money is good. That's what hooked me. And of course, you know, we ended up having 2 sons together within the 12 years that we were in the lifestyle. So that kept me there along with the money. And it was just like, this is all I know now. But
thank you for sharing that. When did you realize you didn't want to be in life anymore, and what made you change?
So, like I said, I was in it for about 12 years. A lot of things happened between that time. And a lot of it was like close calls with me, you know, things that happened close to home for me with the girls that I knew that were murdered and situations I had been in. But another incident that happened, we went to Hawaii. It was like our 3rd time in Hawaii, out there working, you know, getting money. And he had a girl, her name was Ivanese Harris. So she was with him for almost 8 years. So, you know, it was always girls that came and went with me and him, but she was one that, you know, she stayed around. So we all kind of became family. Like, my kids loved her. You know, we were a family. You know, it wasn't the ideal family, but she was family. So the 3rd time we all were in Hawaii, she came up missing a day before her birthday, and then her body was found. And John, actually a Marine, had murdered her. So all these things happened, and it was like, okay, that's close to home, you know, but that was home. And then, sorry, about 6.
She's got some in her hands.
I just don't want to mess up my makeup.
Okay. Thanks, Derek.
Sorry.
You're doing great. This is really brave of you. Thank you. It's very brave of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So that kind of was a big part of it.
Sorry, I'm just trying to clean up here. That was a big thing, and it was just like, okay, if this can happen to her, not that I knew, you know, this can happen to anybody. I've seen it happen. But that, like I said, that was home. And then about 6-7 months later, Mark was taken to prison. So I'm also thinking, he's taken to prison, and I'm thinking, okay, you know, I've brought girls to him, and you know, I actually was in Vegas with a girl at the time, another girl of his, that when he went to prison. So I'm like, okay, is something gonna happen to me? Am I gonna go to prison for the same thing? Where are my kids gonna go, you know? So it was scary, you know, and then at the same time, my kids, like my son, I think he was 3, my other one was 8. Both of our kids, both of our sons, and you know, they seen, my little one was there when the feds came in, and I mean, they took everybody outside. They like trashed the whole house, you know. So then my other son, he comes home off of the school bus and he sees his dad, and he's like, you know, what's going on? You know, that's scary for them to have to go through that, let alone everything that I thought I kept from them throughout the lifestyle. But come to find out, just even now, they'll say things, and I'm like, you saw that? Like, you know, so then we didn't have, they took all our money, all our, you know, anything that was worth anything, they took it, our car, everything. So I was actually in Vegas at the time. And so when I got home, I was still like, okay, this is all I know. You know, this is what I've been doing for 11, almost 12 years. So what do I do? Do I just stop? And then what? You know, I have no history for work, no history for, we ended up losing our house. So, you know, it was me and my kids, me and my 2 boys. He's in prison, and you know, I don't have anything. I'm basically homeless. You know, I had one of his friends, one of my friends, his father, that, you know, thank God that they were able to help us. We were sleeping on a floor, but we had a roof over our head, you know. So it was hard, you know. It was just like, okay, when is enough? You know, I've already started over in that lifestyle. We've started over plenty of times, but now it's like, okay, this is like rock bottom. Let's start on a solid foundation. And you know, he was encouraging me too. You know, that's a rare thing to, you know, him go to jail and be like, you know, let's get on the right track. Like, why don't you start looking for a job? And I did. I put in application after application, and it was just like dead ends. You know, I had to get help from the state. You know, it was not something that I was proud of, but I had to do it. You know, I had to do what I had to do. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Mark, could you briefly tell us your childhood and background?
Yeah. So I grew up in Northeast Portland. I was raised in the hood, so to speak. A lot of gangs, right in the middle of the crack era. So it was like around 88, 89 when I was a young adolescent. So the gangs from LA moved in. They brought the drugs, and it was a big epidemic out there. The neighborhoods was flooded with gangs and drugs and prostitution. And so my dad raised me. My mom was on drugs, so my mom wasn't around at the time. My mom and my dad got divorced when I was very young. I don't even remember them. I don't remember them ever being together. But my mom was, you know, in the streets, running around, doing her thing. My dad, he was a religious man. He was a militant man. He had strong discipline, you know, and so he would try his best to guide me, but I was rebellious. I ran the streets, you know. What was going on in the house was different than what was going on outside. So in the house, it was kind of structured. He was working a lot, but it was kind of structured. I always felt like an outsider, though. But when I went outside, that's where the gangs and, you know, the drugs and the everything that plagued our neighborhood. So it was, you know, the product of my environment, basically.
How did you end up getting into the game? Becoming a pimp.
Becoming a pimp. Yeah. So I went to prison. So like I said, I was in gangs. I joined the gang when I was 14 years old, Six Deuce Diamond Crips. And my nickname was Loco. They named me Loco because I was no, I wasn't crazy. I tried to live up to the name as crazy. So the name kind of consumed me. And so I would be the one that does the stuff that nobody else does, you know. So I got a lot of start having respect from even my older homeboys, the dudes that's younger than me. Even the enemies had respect for me to a certain extent. Once I turned 18 years old, I got involved in a shooting, and I went to federal prison. And after I fought the case for a while, and it brought down some of the charges, and they ended up charging me with felon in possession of a firearm, and unlawful use of a firearm, shooting firearms in the city limits and things like that. And so they sent me to federal prison. While in federal prison, I hung out with a lot of pimps. Pimps took me under their wing. They seen something in me. They said, that I was different from just the average gangbanger, because I had women coming up to see me and visit me and stuff like that, and I would have them bring stuff. And so they seen that I still had some kind of control over the women outside. And so, they took me under the wing, and they would just teach me things, just move me into their cell. Like one pimp was like, "Hey man, stop hanging around with gangbangers. I'm gonna move you into my cell." And so he moved me in my cell, and every night we would be in a different state, a part of the country, like New Mexico or Albuquerque or New York, things like that. And he would basically bring out his pictures, because he was notorious, the dude I was in there. He had 10, 12 women, and he was what we call a guerrilla pimp, which would beat the women and force the women, and throw them in trunks. Like, he was all in his paperwork, all the things he did, and he would sit in the cell, and he would kind of teach me just the highways and the byways, where the track was at. The track is the place where women would be solicited, walking up and down the street corners, hanging out on the street corners and things like that. So he would show me where the different states, and what highways to take to those states. The way to speak to a woman that was involved already in sex trafficking, in how to speak or how to deal with a girl, which is a turnout, how to turn out a woman, and get her into
groom her.
Groom her, yeah, exactly. Groom her into being a prostitute. And so I would learn from him. I would learn from other pimps from different states, Alaska. And sometimes I would just sit around and listen to them talk, like listen to all the pimps talk and get their lingo. I was like a sponge, soaking everything up.
Is there a certain kind of woman that can be manipulated into becoming sexually exploited? How did you find these women and convince them to work for you? There's like in Portland. What would you look for?
I would look for the easiest would be the strip clubs first, because in the strip clubs they're already kind of comfortable with taking off their clothes. They're already kind of comfortable with speaking and trying to talk up on some money to a John. That's the first time like they ever kind of interact with the John. So strip clubs was always prime picking. Even if there wasn't in prostitution or took that next step, it would always be just an easy word, or just for them to get attached to me. But for a woman that wasn't involved even in that, it would be like I would find the shy ones, the ones that were shy. I would find like if I talked to a woman and she couldn't look me in my eye, then I would kind of that would be someone that I could kind of manipulate. A girl that was going through hard times, you sit down and talk to a girl and she has all these problems and money problems and money issues, and I'm able to get into her head, and sell her a dream. We call it selling a dream. The most things is like I would feed off I would feed off their brokenness, but I would also feed off what their dreams would be. And so if they had a dream of a lot of women have dreams of being movie stars, models, video vixens, things like that. And so I was doing music, and so I would do videos, and I toured around the country. And so I would do videos and things like that. And so a lot of them knew me, or if they didn't, I would show them a video on YouTube, and they would be like, wow, that's awesome. And I'd be like, yeah, I can get you in videos. I can get you in, a couple of modeling agencies. And so I would use that. And if they can sing, I would take them to the studio. So I would. Yeah, exactly. And so that I would use I would actually say that the money that they get, I would use to invest in them. So if they,
you would tell them.
I would tell them, yeah.
Okay.
So the money that they would get, I would say, yeah, we can use that to get you a place. We can, and for the most part, I would get them a place, but it would just be a foundation for them to get more comfortable and get it attached. And so it would all be just a dream that I'm selling to them, and it would. A mirage, yeah.
So this is, so you understand, like when these guys get into the game, you hear oftentimes, why do these women do this, right? Well, one, you hear her story, her background. She wants to take care of her son, and then you meet somebody who isn't just coming up with this. Like he's been trained, he's good at speaking, he's really thought through how to manipulate a woman. I mean, these are some things that I'm hoping that you guys are catching as they're talking. So. Well, you answered my next question. How did you manipulate them to do what you want? And you kind of went through that for me. Was there ever a point before meeting Christ that you felt that what you were doing seemed wrong or immoral? Why or why not?
No, because it was part of our culture. Gangs, violence, criminal activity. Where I grew up, in the era that I grew up, it was natural for me, not for everybody, because I can't say that everybody that grows in the hood just automatically does these things. But for me, being involved in gangs at a young age, seeing things, being a part of things, the music that I listened to, it would all play a part in it. So when you're 14, 15 and you're doing drugs and smoking weed, your brain hasn't even developed yet. And so you're easily influenced. And so my heart became cold and like stone. I had a cold heart. I had a murderous heart, anger for nothing. 15 years old, you're going to funerals. Your homeboys getting murdered in the street, so things happen until I got to the point where, I really didn't have a heart. I didn't have a heart. I didn't see the things that I was doing was wrong. I felt like, I'm gonna get this money, regardless of who likes it or not. It was almost like a cat and mouse game when it comes to the police and the feds. And it's been like that since I was 14, 15 years old. We try to outrun them, outsmart them, outthink them. And so it's always been like, just a part of, how I was raised in the streets.
When did you realize you didn't want to be a pimp anymore, and what happened to make you change?
So, there was always times where, I would feel like, I'm tired of this, especially after about 10 years in it, 8 years in it, ups and downs. I don't know. Have you ever seen Scarface?
Well,
okay. So,
Mom, Dad, yeah.
there's a part in the movie when Scarface and his fellas, they're at a restaurant in Scarface, and he's drunk, and he looks, and his wife at the time, what was it, Michelle Pfeiffer, and he looked at her, he said, "Is this it? Is this it?" And he was at a point to where he was like, "I've did all this, I've got all this, I wanted all this, and is this it? Is this all I have?" And so it was times where I felt like that. It was times where I was at the top end of my career, and was like still missing something. And so it was times throughout that. I used to tell her, I used to say, this is a mirage. This is all fake. Anytime the feds come kicking this door, they can take everything. This is all something that can be took, because I knew that. And so when Ivan Nice was murdered, that took a toll on me. I went through a dark place, a dark space, and it didn't actually help me to try to get out of it. It kind of pushed me deeper into more alcohol, more drugs, more women, more violence, more abuse, and then I got indicted. And when I got indicted, and the feds came, and I know it was God who stepped in, because I would have been dead. I would have been dead, or I'd been in jail, in prison for a long time, because I had I wanted to hurt somebody. And so when I was indicted and I went to prison, while I was in there, I think that's when it was kind of like I didn't want her in it before I met Christ. So I kind of was like, well, I don't want you in it. Mentally, I would say things like, well, I might work in a strip club or something like that, or I might do, if it comes to me. If a girl wants to bring me some money, I'll work with her. But it wasn't until I found Christ that I understood the error of my ways. I understood the value of a woman, and that really ultimately is what caused me to stop.
Could you briefly tell us that encounter that you had with the Lord? Because, man, from what you're talking about to completely change your way, what happened? Did you hear some cool message on YouTube? What happened?
So, I was searching. I was being tormented, being locked up, this guilt, this shame, this hurt, nightmares, waking up in cold sweats, waking up with tears in my eyes, crying, dreams about Ivan Nice, things like that. And it was long, many nights I didn't get sleep. I was going through a torment. So I was always trying to find some kind of truth, some kind of peace. But every time I would read the Quran, I would read, Buddhist books for meditation, things like that. And I would even practice it, try it. But every time I opened up the Bible, that's when I found peace. It was always like the Bible was living and breathing. And even though I didn't understand the Word of God, even though I would just open it up and read scriptures, and it would always speak to me. Before I went to court, when I was looking at all this time and I felt overwhelmed, or I heard bad news from my lawyer, I would open up the Bible and I would feel a peace, like it was going to be okay. So I was always searching, trying to figure it out. And when I was in my cell after I got sentenced and everything, one night, I was reading a book called More Than a Carpenter by Josh McDowell. And it was a powerful book. It was just talking about historical evidence, historical facts about Jesus, about the resurrection, about the disciples, and things like all logical information. And when I was sitting in my cell one night, I was just sitting in my cell alone, and right in the middle of the book, it just dawned on me. It was like the Holy Spirit touched me. And in my mind, I said, this is real. And then I vocalized it. And when I vocalized it, it was almost like God came into my cell. And I said, this is real. And then tears started coming down my eyes, and I started crying like a baby, and it was like I was worried now. It was like an overwhelming feeling of worried, and I was like, well, this is real. This is real. And I kept on saying that this is real. Like, I need to get right. This is, it was a conviction, but it was the fear of God. You know what I'm saying? That finally hit me. And I got on my knees in my cell, crying like a baby, and it was like God was right there in my cell, and he was showing me the error of my ways. It was like my life was flashing before my eyes, not my whole life, but things that, like when I was close to death, things that when I was shot, or when I was almost killed, or when guys, my enemies, see me, and things like that. And then I seen where he was there, and then it was like, major moments in my life where I did dirt, or I did things that I shouldn't have done, and it was like he was convicting me of those things. And I kept on saying, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Please forgive me. And I said, I wanted him. Just come into my heart. Please change me. And right then, there's like a weight lifted off my shoulders.
I apologize about the time. We're probably going to be running over, so if you end up having to go, we understand, but we really want to continue with the program. So thank you guys so much for listening. We had more people than we anticipated, so we appreciate it. It just took a little bit longer to get everybody seated. But that's just because God is good, and you guys showed up. So, Mark, I got a couple. We've had some questions that were texted in, so I want to ask both of you guys a few questions, if you don't mind. I'll bounce back and forth. And again, thank you so much for being honest. I think what's cool about this is that for most of us in the room, we believe in God. I mean, HRC Ministries, we're a ministry. We believe in Jesus. That's why we do this. And, for most of us, we believe the Bible is real. And the person that wrote 2/3 of the New Testament used to kill Christians. And Jesus changed his life. So this is nothing, right? Working with men coming out of prison in a lifestyle is nothing for the Lord. That's right. And I think that we need to give him honor for what he did in your life. Amen. So, Lord, we just honor you for that. Mark, how have your beliefs changed about pimping and sexual exploitation?
Totally transformed. Like, now I see the brokenness, and I see the value of women, the imago Dei, the image of God, and men and women. And so it changed so drastically that I speak out against it. Like, I speak out against dudes that I know that might be still in it. I tell them, I talk to them all the time, like, hey man, get it right. It's time to get out of that. Women that know me, that know her, has reached out to her or reached out to me and asked, like, how did y'all change? And so we would, she would always invite all the women to church. It's been times where we baptized a woman that used to be in our stable, me and her, baptized her right in the tub. Yeah. And so it's I see the brokenness, I see the hurt, and I see the demonic in it. I know that there's a demonic presence that's very involved, that's behind the scenes, that's in the surface. It's the oldest profession, and we're against the ancient enemy, and so it makes sense. It makes sense, and so I see it, and I know that only Jesus Christ is the antidote to it.
Praise God. Jill, what do you believe is a big key to ending sex trafficking?
I have to say that I don't know if it's even possible to actually end it. But the one thing is, if there is no Johns, there is no prostitution, period. It's hard, it's kind of, as I was explaining before, like a supply and demand thing. You know, if there's no demand for it, then what happens to the supply? There's no need for it, you know? I don't know if it's really a way to end it, but to bring awareness is always, of course, a need. And to like how I explain the dangers of it, you know, I'd be willing to talk to anybody at any time, anywhere, to tell them the things that I've been through. I have to say that I'm not proud of what I've been through and the things that I've done, but I do say I'm not ashamed either, because it makes me who I am today.
I would say, so accountability on all. So the pimps are held accountable.
You mean like criminally?
Criminally, yeah. So the women, they are held accountable too, because they get convicted, and you know, now they just started calling them victims and things like that. But it's still they're still being used. They're still being used to get other men too, right? And so Johns are the only ones that's not really held accountable when it comes to criminal to crime, you know, being indicted.
Slap on the wrist.
Yeah, and so accountability has to be on all sides. Everybody has to be held accountable. And if they're scared, because you can say that you can expose a John and say, well, you'll be exposed, your wife will know, but sometimes the wife already knows, right? Sometimes the wife might be involved. Sometimes they're not married, you know, and so they don't really, you know, care about those things. And so it's just like, what is going to stop them from wanting to purchase a young lady?
Yeah, that's very true. Actually, moving on to the next question then. Mark, as someone who was in prison for exploiting trafficked women, do you believe your prison term of 3 years was enough? And now being on the other side of the fight, what would you like to see happen to the men who exploit and traffic others?
For me, it was enough. So they have laws, like really, my case was from 0 to 18 months. They gave me extra because of the circumstances and because of the murder, right? But so there's laws. If the women is adults, then it's really, you can get probation basically. If it's an underage, then there's a mandatory minimum of 15 years, and that's when it starts to get a little more serious. I think the laws need to change on the time for those who have adults, because it's 0 to 18 months, and it's really like a slap on the. They don't get it. I think they may need to reform that, but also I think that programs within the prison, because they really don't have a lot of resources within the prison. How do we transform the mind of a man who was sex trafficking, or a pimp that was in there that had all this money and things like that, this glamour? How do we change his mind from, now when I get out, this is what I know, this is all I know? Is there resources in there? Is there, because really a lot, what I know from experience is a lot of those dudes can't wait to get out.
Right.
They can't wait to get back.
How much time?
Yeah, no matter how much. I know dudes who's coming down from 15 years, 20 years, and can't wait to get out. And they're mad.
Just to get back in the game.
Just to get back in the game. Angry that they got locked up and got 20 years. And so maybe even worse when they get out. So
there needs to be some kind of a barrier between prison and re-entering society.
There has to be something there. And there got to be resources when they get out.
Wow. This is to both of you guys. As parents, what do you plan to do to help your children understand the dangers of sex trafficking, and how will you educate them and help them understand their worth?
You want to go first?
So now that we're Christians and we live a completely different life, we obviously teach them completely different. As I said before, there were some things that they seen or that they would say to me, and I wouldn't realize that they saw as much as they did. They heard as much as they did. My son just the other day, actually, he's like, well, Mom, I don't even know what you did. And I just kind of went around the question. I feel like when it's the right time, like our older son, I think he knows what we did. He was older then, and he's seen more, he understood more. So I think when it's the right time, and I feel that it's okay to tell them the truth, and for them to know the dangers of it, to know the repercussions of it, and to just raise them with the right morals and the right principles, and just with Jesus in their life.
Same thing. Like my thing is not forcing their relationship with Christ, but letting them see me, letting them see the example. Is being the example. They like my oldest, like not my oldest son, but our oldest son together. He knows who I used to be for the most part. He's seen a lot, and now he sees this new man. And from my example, he wanted to get baptized. So just from my example, both of them wanted to get saved. So they end up
very proud.
When they end up getting saved, we end up baptizing them. And so just being an example and giving them principles and morals about the image of God and about how we are created in God's image and what does that mean, and our identity in Christ and what does that mean,
and showing them, not just just do as I say.
So as
that's
parents, it's more than just teaching our kids. It's living pure and living holy, and living this out and be an example.
We do have a daughter now too. We might just have to lock her up because I don't even know. She's only 2, and I'm like, she's a mommy's girl and more of a daddy's girl. But for her, I don't know. I mean, of course the same things, but I'm like, I'm actually thankful. I always wanted a girl. We had a son apart from each other and then 2 together. So 4 sons before I had a girl. And I'm actually very thankful I didn't have her while I was in that lifestyle, because even with the boys, I would always say, even in it, I don't want them to grow up to be pimps. I don't want to raise them in this, but I still did, It was.
Yeah. What do you think your life and recovery process would have looked like if you hadn't found Christ?
I don't know where I would be right now. I'm not going to lie and say that, even though I told her to stop before I met Christ, that I still had other plans in the back of my mind. Even when we talk on the phone, I might say something else, but when I'm back on the playroom or I'm back on the gym, I'm still talking the lingo and I'm still hanging with the guys and I'm still glamorizing the life.
Easy to get back into it.
And so I don't know where if it wasn't the foundations of Jesus Christ. If I wouldn't have found Christ, then I probably would have lost my family. We wouldn't be married. I probably would be in the game or back in prison for a violation or something like that. So I would, it would be a bad thing.
I don't know. I don't know where I would be either. I could be dead. I could be even deeper into it. I could have got on more drugs than I was. I didn't do hard drugs like that. I tried them here and there, but who knows? Maybe I just would have went down a path that was just destructive. Or I don't know. I could have went back to New York. I mean, I don't know. And then I wouldn't have him, you know, we'd all be separated. It's hard to say, but I'm glad that I did find Jesus.
Amen.
Mark, what we talked briefly about, we're going to bring Marlon and Laura up here shortly and then finish. We talked briefly about these houses, these men's houses for men coming out of prison. How do you believe that would have helped you transitioning out and your friends that are transitioning out? And is it important for us to get behind this and get these going?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, just to have resources like that. So you got people that genuinely that's coming out of there with good intentions. Life hits them when they get out. You see, because when we locked up, we got 3 meals a day and we have a roof over our head. It's not too many worries. It's not too many things that we need to be worried about except for our freedom. And now we're trying to work on ourselves. Every man wants to do better, you know, somehow, somewhere deep down inside. So we got men that comes out with good intentions, but when they get out, it's just no resources out there. Nothing that's going to help them. Nothing that's going to help them even be accountable. Discipleship, you know, things that we have inside there as far as accountability with the brothers in Christ and things like that. And so I think that it's mandatory for men when they coming back into society to have those kind of places to where they're able to transition correctly into society and have accountability and have people that's going to encourage them, people that's going to love them, and people's going to show them that there's not going to hold what they did against them.
Jill, for you, on the other side of this, what do you think now, connecting with us, hearing about our program, what we're trying to get going, what are your thoughts about the importance of getting this open, and how would it have possibly helped you and your friends?
I have to say that I think it's amazing. A while ago I said, I had no history of like when I wanted to rent an apartment, when I finally did get an apartment, and I had no history for a job. I was thankful that I personally had some friends. I had his family. I actually had him for some of my motivation, and so I was thankful for that. So I was able to, get my GED. I finally now got my associates. I got my driver's license after 16 years. But to be able to have something like you guys have, it would have, for me, myself, it would have made it probably a lot easier, not so stressful, not so hard, and not struggle so much and be homeless. And, like those pictures that you showed are just amazing. Like for me, I was used to having like nice stuff and everything. So it would have been a good transition because I'm like, oh wow, this isn't just like a hotel room, like it's amazing. And even for those who aren't, every situation is different. So even for the girls who are not used to that, like to go into something like that and not have to pay rent, not have to really worry about anything, but they're healing themselves. You have to, and they have to want it, though. I do have to say, like, they have to want it and be determined to want that change, because otherwise it's not, you can't want it for them. But as long as they want it, I feel like it's just amazing. I feel like it's just amazing. Like, I'm almost speechless about it, because when you show the pictures, I'm just like, wow, if I would have had that when I got out, I think that it's definitely needed. And then the programs to, for it to be like Christ-centered, I just think it's absolutely amazing, and it's very much needed. I think the more of this that we have, the more girls that will come out and we'll see, like, I don't have to stoop down and be in a hotel or, whatever they may think. I think it's awesome, really, really awesome, and much, much needed.
Awesome, thank you. Last question, because we've talked a lot about your guys' past. What are you guys both currently doing now And why don't you tell me a little bit why you decided to finally marry him?
I always loved Mark unconditionally. Through everything we've been through, I always loved him unconditionally. And the one thing too so he does music also, and I don't know if that was already said. He is very talented, very gifted, and that was something that I always looked at, like he's not just a pimp, like he is actually trying to do something with himself. So I always believed in him, ever since day one, ever since I heard him rap, heard his music. When he told me that he was switching it up and going gospel, I was like, okay, he was like gangster rap. Okay, let's see how this works out. So, but it's still him, it's still his style, it's still amazing. It's just a completely different message, but it still felt, it's amazing. So, as he was going through his change, I would visit him every Sunday faithfully, me and the kids. So I seen it and I felt it and I heard it, but I think if I would have said yes, then we probably would have got married while he was in prison. And I was just like, no, I need you to be out and I need to see it. Not just a month, not just 6 months, I need to actually see this change, when you get out in the real world, because it's different, when you're in there and when you're out here, it's like two completely different worlds. And even my mom, she's, everything that we've been through, I'd call her crying, and he did this, he did that, and she would always see the good in him, even though she'd tell me to come home. She always, forever, she always seen the good in him. So, I always turned to my mom, too, and, he actually had to get my mom's blessing as well, because, my dad ended up passing away, and he wasn't there anyway, so it would have been my mom anyway. But, so it was just like, I had to see the change. And then I just was amazed, He got out, and it was just like, I literally can't really explain the change from when I knew him back then to now, because it's so amazing and it's so drastic that you can't really feel what I feel or see what I see unless you went through it and you were me. But it's just absolutely amazing, and only God.
What are you guys currently doing now?
So I'm going after a degree, a bachelor's in biblical studies and theology at Multnomah University. I'm also a pastor. We just planted a church, Kingdom Builders International, where we just a missional church, going out on the streets.
And in our garage for now.
Yeah, we're in our garage for now.
But you know what? That's okay. You got to start somewhere.
Yeah, never despise humble beginnings. And also a peer mentor specialist. So trying to get into drug, alcohol counseling, and get my CDAC. And just being a man of God, a man of integrity, a man of honor, a husband, a father, and a supporter. We have a ministry called Boss Ministries, busy out saving souls. It kind of fit. It's good. It kind of fit the old life, I guess. Boss. But God put it on my heart, and so. We do busy out saving souls. That's what it's acronym for. And we go out into the streets doing outreach, homeless outreach, gang outreach. A lot of people know me, so when they see the change, they I'm able to to talk to them. And I've seen pimps be transformed. I've seen women be transformed, radically changed by Jesus Christ. I'm on fire for the Lord now. So, I know that there's hope, and I know there's hope. But that's what I'm doing. That's what we doing.
So
Ivy's Angels.
Yeah, I was gonna say you left out the most important one. From the time that I've actually was out until now, there was one time I was working 3 jobs. I now still have 2 of those. After 16 years of no license, I have had so many tickets just for driving without a license. It's ridiculous. And I think it's been a year now, or close to a year, I finally have a driver's license. And what's funny is I never want to drive now. He's always like, you have a driver's license, you don't want to drive. But, and then, so I got my GED. That was always a thing, even in the lifestyle. I was always like, I don't even have my GED, and he used to call me stupid, and it really got to me. So I finally got my GED, and then I was like, well, maybe I'll take a break, and he was like, why? I was like, okay, I guess I'll start college. So I go to Warner Pacific. I'm in my 3rd year there. I just got my associates, and I'm almost done with my first class, starting my bachelor's, and it'll be in business administration. So I eventually want to have thank you. I eventually want to start a clothing store, maybe start online and see where it goes from there. And I think most importantly, Mark actually had this vision, and I guess he kind of had me take over. We started Ivy's Angels, so in memory of Ivy. I don't know why I'm about to cry again. So basically, we want to do almost, I don't want to say exactly, but pretty much what you're doing. We want to have houses called Ivy's Houses to where, thank you, the women who want to get out or who do get out, that we have resources, we have houses for them to come to and help them transition out of that lifestyle. And so right now it's just kind of a website and a vision. But again, you got to start somewhere. So if you guys ever want to check it out, it's ivysangels.biz.
Yeah. Expose hope.
And then also, so I go out to once a month, every first Saturday. We actually both go out to the strip clubs, and what we do is we just it's with a lady. Her ministry is called Expose Hope, and we go out to the strip clubs, and so the women go in the women's, and the men go in the men's. And it was very interesting. His first time, it was hilarious.
As in, he will go to a homosexual strip club?
Yes, and drag queens, all that.
Yeah, and drag queens.
We go in and we just give them. The director, the founder of the ministry. She just has little gifts that we give. Like Christmas, it was like a stocking with an ornament and fuzzy socks. Halloween, it was like some ornaments. So we just give all the dancers gifts. And she always has a card in there. So that's kind of what she wants to do too, is, just help these ladies and, do what we can to give them the resources that we got. And, eventually we want to have houses like you are.
That's awesome. Thank you guys so much.